What if I told you that McLaren knew one of their cars was broken and still decided to do nothing? That Oscar Piastri raced for weeks with a fault that the team knew about but hid? Today I reveal to you the truth behind the accident in Brazil that has just destroyed the credibility of the most promising team of the year. The Interlagos circuit, iconic for its history and for being a relentless judge of Formula One seasons, was the scene of one of the most uncomfortable episodes for McLaren in recent years. The sprint race was underway under wet and treacherous conditions. The first laps were a test of reflexes, traction and mettle. But what no one expected was that one of the championship contenders would end his participation so abruptly. Oscar Piastri, who was in a solid third position, completely lost control of his car when he hit a wet curb in turn 3, spinning without the possibility of reaction and crashing into the barriers. The cameras captured the moment. Replays showed a common spin, like those that occur in wet conditions. And at that moment, the official narrative was simple: a piloting error, a poorly calculated move. But behind the scenes, the McLaren technical team already knew there was something more, something they could no longer hide. What seemed like an isolated accident was, in reality, the outcome of a problem that had been brewing for weeks, and that had exploded at the worst possible moment. The key piece in this story is the hydraulic actuator for the MCL39's rear suspension pressure valve system. This component, by itself, seems insignificant. It is small, discreet, and is not usually the protagonist in the technical notes. But in a Formula One car, every part counts. Each valve, each sensor, each component has a vital responsibility in the balance of the vehicle. In Piastri's case, an internal microfracture imperceptible to the naked eye and outside the warning range of standard sensors generated minimal pressure losses in high-demand situations, such as sudden braking or lateral load transfers in fast corners. The problem was neither constant nor dramatic, but enough to cause a response delay in the rear axle of milliseconds. And in Formula One, milliseconds are the difference between staying on track or losing control completely. The team had identified these anomalies since the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. In each subsequent race, telemetry readings indicated slight inconsistencies in hydraulic pressure, especially in high dynamic load areas such as the Austin corners and the braking sections in Mexico. And yet, the decision was to observe, analyze, wait. They did not disassemble the system, they did not replace the actuator. They opted for a conservative approach, trusting that the defect would not escalate. But Brazil does not forgive. And neither is chance. The exact moment of the accident coincided with a cloud of water raised by Lando Norris' car a few seconds before, a situation reported by Kimi Antonelli from his Mercedes. That cloud descended on the same route that Piastri was going to travel. The Australian, in full acceleration, found a surface even more slippery than expected. With a rear suspension that did not respond in time, with hydraulic pressure already compromised, the car simply stopped obeying. It wasn't an error in judgment. It wasn't a bad corner. It was the convergence of an ignored technical failure and an environment that left no room for error. And the most alarming thing is that the team itself knew it. The consequences were not only material. Piastri lost essential points, the internal dynamics of the team were affected, and most seriously, a culture of risk management was exposed that put the stability of the team before safety and technical equity among its drivers. The accident was the visible moment. The truth was hidden in the days, weeks, and previous decisions. And that Saturday in Brazil, the truth could no longer be hidden. The decision not to act, to postpone the inevitable, was perhaps McLaren's biggest strategic and ethical mistake of the entire season. Because in modern Formula One, where every failure is measured with data, and where every anomaly passes through the filters of dozens of engineers, there is no room for what happened with Oscar Piastri. The microfracture in his car was not a mystery, it was not invisible to the experts. From Azerbaijan, the engineers knew that something was not right. And yet, no one stopped the clock. Nobody activated the alarms. Lando Norris, Piastri's teammate, led the championship at various points in the calendar. His car worked perfectly. The team could not afford to alter the overall configuration of the car. The architecture of the MCL39 was extremely sensitive. Touching one component meant recalibrating everything. And that potentially included Norris' car as well. Reconfiguring a single axle could alter grip levels, braking distribution, and balance in fast corners. Changing a system in Piastri's car could force him to do the same in his teammates, and that, in such a close battle, was simply unacceptable from a political point of view. In a sport as secretive as Formula One, where diplomacy and damage control are commonplace, Stella's attitude was radical. There was no ambiguity, no technical defenses or detours to internal committees. There was a frontal declaration of responsibility. And that, within McLaren, fell like a meteorite. The internal structure of the British team, which was coming off a historic season in 2024 crowned with the Constructors' Championship, faltered. Because what Stella did was not only recognize a technical failure, it was publicly accepting an ethical, institutional failure. And at the center of that fracture was Oscar Piastri, a young, talented driver who had been demonstrating consistency and speed since his debut. A driver who trusted his team without reservation. Stella's words set off a chain reaction. Within the team, the technical departments began a deep review of the fault management system. The chain of command that determined when to intervene on critical components was exposed. Some internal voices, according to sources leaked from Woking, even considered that Stella had exposed the team to an unnecessary reputational crisis. But others, more silent, privately acknowledged that the decision to speak out had been brave and necessary. What remains on the table now is not simply an isolated incident. It is an operating model crisis. McLaren faces a structural question: how to maintain competitive balance between its two drivers without falling into favoritism or compromising the technical integrity of its cars. The season is still ongoing, and the points lost by Piastri in Brazil could make the difference in the fight for both championships. Lando Norris, solid at the top of the World Championship, has also been put in the spotlight. To what extent has his advantage been influenced, consciously or unconsciously, by decisions that harmed his teammate? Andrea Stella has set the bar very high. He has taken the blame, he has put the body. But now McLaren owes a debt to its future. Because it is not enough to admit the mistake. You have to show that you learned from him. We must rebuild trust with Piastri, with the fans, with Formula One as a whole. And that will only be achieved with a real operational reform, with visible changes, with a total review of the technical decision hierarchies. McLaren's immediate future no longer depends only on what happens on the track. It depends on how they handle this institutional earthquake. Because one thing is clear, after Stella's coup, nothing will be the same within the Woking team. The truth, when it is finally revealed, does not come with a bang. It doesn't appear as an alarm ringing in the paddock. He arrives with an almost clinical calm. With leaked documents, with dry and precise statements, with irrefutable data. But its weight, once it drops, is impossible to ignore. And what this truth has revealed is devastating. McLaren made a conscious decision not to intervene in the face of a technical failure that affected the performance, confidence, and possibly the career of one of its most promising drivers. Oscar Piastri did not lose a podium in Brazil. He lost weeks of opportunities. He lost full confidence in the machinery that supports him. And although he may not say it publicly, every driver knows what it means to feel like your car betrays you. Not because of a sudden break. Not because of a chance incident. But because of a series of accumulated decisions, made with caution, but knowing that the risk was present. This is not just a stain on the history of a team that comes from the top. It is an uncomfortable mirror for the entire grille. Because if McLaren, the defending champion, the technical benchmark of the moment, can prioritize silence over action, how many others have done it before, or are doing it now? The consequences don't have to manifest only in lost points or explosive headlines. They also occur in the hallways of headquarters, in private meetings with sponsors, in the internal dynamics between pilots and engineers, and above all, in the way trust is rebuilt after a silent betrayal. Andrea Stella made an unusual decision: tell the truth. In an era where organizations prefer to control the story, he chose to open the wound. And that has incalculable value but also a cost. The team must now demonstrate that this act was not a last resort, but rather a turning point. Because words without action evaporate. And what McLaren needs now is an institutional response, not a defense. The truth, once revealed, demands transformation. It is not enough to understand what happened. We must act so that it does not happen again. Oscar Piastri, McLaren, and the entire F1 have an opportunity to turn this scandal into a course correction. But that decision, like everything in this sport, is measured in thousands. And time has already started to run. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.